Well, thank you very much. Good morning. This weekend, Canadians from all walks of life will celebrate Mother's Day. One thing we all have in common is that we owe our existence to our mothers. Mothers work hard, contribute, and sacrifice for the good of their families. On that day especially, we honor mothers, and we believe government should do what they can to support all mothers, fathers, and families. Families are the cornerstone of a strong society. Today, I'm very excited to be here with three of my colleagues, all of them mothers, and with all of you to announce our Conservative Work and Family Life Plan. Now, since the last election, our Conservative caucus has more young parents than ever before, parents who are actively balancing parenting responsibilities with political life. As we talk about policies that shape the balance between work and family life, we're not just speaking to abstract theories we've read about. We are voices in Parliament for parents with young children, for parents who want to provide the best for their kids, both working and being present with their kids as much as possible. New technology and emerging trends in work have created new opportunities for parents to balance work and family life, while the worsening affordability crisis has also put new burdens on families. It's harder and harder to get ahead, so parents feel pressure to work as much as possible. Taking into consideration that context, today, after a great deal of consultation and discussion, Conservatives are putting forward new policies to reform EI parental leave in order to support families struggling to balance work and family life. When it comes to parents in the workforce, Conservatives have always emphasized the importance of choice and flexibility. We honor and respect the choices that parents make when it comes to managing and balancing work and family life. We seek policy that gives parents the flexibility to pursue the balance that works for them. When I was a kid, too many parents faced a stark binary choice. You're either a parent working outside the home or you're a stay-at-home parent. Systems and technology in place at that time did not leave much space for choices in the middle. Today, thankfully, many parents have more choices than just those two. Arrangements for flexible, remote, odd hours, and part-time work give parents more flexibility to find the balance that works for them. Of course, the kinds of arrangements that make sense will vary depending on specific circumstances. But choice should not just mean choosing one or the other side of a binary dilemma. Choice should mean allowing parents to find the career with the precise work and family life balance that makes sense in their circumstances. In my family, this means my wife seeing many of her medical patients virtually on Saturdays from our home office, as I hang out with the kids and try to prevent them from charging into her office mid-appointment. On the days when I'm in the constituency, a very early start from the home office usually buys me a bit of family time later in the day. These are the kinds of things that many couples are figuring out as they negotiate career and family life integration. If you'll indulge me, I did also want to mention that today happens to be my 15-year wedding anniversary, so I'd like to send out a happy anniversary wish to my wife. We have 6 kids and 2 careers, so we certainly talk a lot about this issue of work and family life balance. So even as society and technology has changed to allow more flexibility, EI parental leave continues to impose unreasonable strictures on how parents negotiate the balance between work and family life. There is no provision for partial leave, for a parent to pause leave and then return to it, for parents to have the certainty of being able to pursue studies while on leave, or for a parent on leave to earn a little bit of money by also offering childcare services without facing clawbacks. As young parents, we want more flexibility in how we and other parents use a parental leave system that we have paid into. Society has developed to offer more flexibility and choice for many parents, but government policy has not kept pace. Les changements que nous annonçons aujourd'hui concernent tout le congé parental et ne s'appliqueront donc pas au Québec, car le Québec a son propre système distinct. Nous respectons les compétences du Québec. We have 3 distinct reforms that we're announcing today, and I'm very pleased to be joined by my colleagues, Sandra Cobena, Carol Anstey, and Laila Goodridge, who will each be announcing one of these policies. So at this point, I will hand things over to Sandra.
Thank you, Garnett. Good morning, everybody. So Canada is facing 3 intertwined challenges. We have a productivity crisis, we have rising affordability pressures, and a declining birth rate. And yet, our maternal or parental leave policy still forces many parents into an all or nothing choice between career and caregiving. If Canada is serious about addressing our productivity crisis, affordability challenges, and demographic decline, we must stop treating parental leave as a rigid absence from work and start treating it as part of the modern workforce strategy that supports families, employers, and economic growth together. That is why today I'm proud to join with my colleagues in announcing a Conservative plan to modernize parental leave by introducing greater flexibility for Canadian families. Right now, parental leave must be taken consecutively and without interruption. So if a mother temporarily returns to work, she risks losing the remainder of her maternity leave entitlement altogether. That rigid system no longer reflects the realities of modern work or modern family life. Under our plan, mothers would be able to temporarily interrupt their maternity leave through a mutually agreed arrangement with their employers, whether it is for financial necessity, seasonal work demands, or professional obligations, and then return to their remaining maternity leave afterwards without penalty. This flexibility will allow families and employers to make arrangements that work best for both parties without forcing mothers to sacrifice the support they're entitled to. Having spent 15 years in finance and also being a mother of three, and getting ready to welcome another daughter this summer, I know firsthand the struggles of balancing family with a successful career. In my finance profession, there are busy cycles known well in advance. April, June, and September, we knew that the craze was coming and we would prepare for that. But as a mother and professional, I would have loved to stay connected and to pitch in during those busy times, helping the employer and the broader team, of course, at that, but then be able to return to my leave without penalty. But that was impossible. In my case, I decided to return to work and unfortunately had to give up whatever was left on the leave. Many people in the agricultural industry may also wish to work during the harvest season to help the job get done. Similar issues are present in tourism, tax, legal, real estate, and hospitality industries, where short return to work can help the family financially, but also keep our economy productive. Whether it's tax season, summer tourism season, or the March real estate wave of listings, women may want to return to work for a short period of time, but the current rules are take it or leave it. At a time when Canada faces a productivity crisis, affordability pressures, and declining birth rates, we should not force parents into an all or nothing choice between career and caregiving. Greater flexibility in parental leave is not just a family policy, of course, it is an economic policy. This is about trusting mothers, trusting families, and recognizing that the flexibility is not economic weakness. It is a common sense approach to address the productivity crisis, rising affordability pressures, and of course, declining birth rates. In Canada, Canadian women say that they actually want about 2.2 women on average, 2.2 children, on average, but Canada's actual fertility rate is now 1.25 children per woman. That gap is increasingly being referred to by demographers as the missing children phenomenon, meaning many women are ending up with fewer children that they would have hoped or intended to have. And this issue, is not that Canadians no longer value family life, of course, but that economic and structural barriers are preventing people from having the number of children they want. And at the same time, Canada's fertility rate has now fallen into what demographers call the ultra-low fertility. Why? The most common cited barriers include housing affordability, childcare costs, job insecurity, delayed career stability, and work-family incompatibility. And far too often, mothers are forced into impossible choices because government the government system is too rigid to accommodate real life. And our plan recognizes that supporting families means giving them more freedom, more dignity, and more flexibility to make the decisions that work best for them. The failure of our society is to have enough children. It is not a political or partisan issue. It is a national emergency, and I am proud, alongside my colleagues, to start the conversation on how we can make parental leave better to remove one barrier to family formation. And with that, I would like to turn it over to my colleague, Carol.
Well, thank you all for being here today, and I want to say thank you as well to Garnett for showing tremendous leadership on this policy announcement that has been born out of an understanding of the new challenges that families are facing, as well as the opportunities that can be created by a rapidly changing economy. I have the pleasure today of announcing a policy that reflects the modern reality of how Canadians live, work, and raise their families, while also adapting, growing, and advancing in their careers. Canada's Conservatives are proposing an amendment to employment insurance that would always allow parents receiving parental benefits to pursue education or training. Currently, decisions about who can and cannot learn on leave are made by bureaucrats based on fuzzy criteria, and we would change that. I am speaking to this today not just as a member of Parliament, but also as a mother of four and someone who has spent 2 decades building a diverse career with a growing family. I started as a small business owner. I trained to become a real estate sales agent, then a licensed broker so I could lead my own company, and later transitioned into business coaching with small and mid-sized brokerages across Canada before entering politics. Now, every one of those steps required learning, and every step was vital to my professional development, to provide for my family and to adapt in a changing economy, especially in a rural area of the country where sometimes opportunities can be limited. But my experience is not unique. It reflects the reality of millions of Canadians. Careers today are dynamic, they shift with the economy, and many families do not have the ability or means to pause everything while upgrading their skills because life tends to happen all at once. Therefore, uncertain criteria sends the wrong message, and it creates an unnecessary barrier. Conservatives believe in empowering Canadians rather than standing in their way. Young Canadians today are trying to navigate their lives under unprecedented financial pressure, and that makes flexibility and opportunity more important than ever. The oldest of my 4 children, my daughter, Bree, who is here with me today, is 19. She's just beginning to discover her own path in life, and like so many in her generation, she will likely have to navigate both a career and a family in a complex and evolving economy. And we believe that we should be making that path easier, not putting up barriers, and this policy does exactly that. It removes unnecessary gatekeeping and replaces it with something far more important: confidence in Canadians. Now I will ask my colleague Laila Goodridge to expand on our plan.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you everyone for being here today. It is clear that families have changed, and the request for flexibility is no longer something that is a nice to have, but it's a need to have. And parents today are balancing more and more responsibilities than ever before. Many looking for that flexibility to be able to support their families while still caring for their own young children or tending to aging or ill loved ones. However, the current system, there are cases where parents and caregivers can unintentionally be penalized for trying to do exactly that. This is why Conservatives are proposing a caregiving exception to employment insurance parental benefit clawbacks. Right now, if somebody receiving EI parental benefits tries to earn a small amount of additional money by providing care to others, whether it's running a small home-based day home, whether it's caring for a neighbor's child, doing respite care for a child with disabilities, or helping with an ailing parent, they risk having their benefits reduced. In practice, this discourages initiative and limits flexibility at a time when families need it the most. And it also reduces the overall care available within our communities and within society. Our approach is different. We believe caregivers should be supported, not punished for finding creative and responsible ways to contribute to their household income while caring for their own children or supporting aging or sick family members. Under a caregiving exception, parents and caregivers would be free to do just that without fear of losing critical benefits. This change would do two important things. First, it would give families financial flexibility during a demanding stage of life. I don't know about any of you, but raising children is really expensive. I've got 2 little boys at home, and I've had the pleasure of having both of them in my time in office. And between the cost of diapers and food and all the other care, having extra money helps a lot of families. And I've had the opportunity to talk to so many families throughout Canada who have shared exactly that in that first year specifically, if they would have had the opportunity to make a little bit of extra money, especially during this cost of living crisis, that would have made all the difference for that. And what we end up hearing from a lot of families is they end up going back to work earlier than they had intended because they had no other choice, because they understand that unlike the government, you cannot just run deficit budgets without consequence. And so this is just one solution as part of a package of many that are going to give families more space and flexibility. At its core, this is about common sense. This is about recognizing the value of caregiving in all its forms, supporting family choice, and ensuring our system reflects the realities many Canadians face. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I believe we'll go to questions. So please go ahead.
Hi, Kyle Duggan from the Canadian Press. Could you just tell me a little bit about how this policy pitch had evolved? Were there particular groups that had reached out expressing concerns about this? You'd mentioned agriculture workers. I'm just curious about kind of the origins of how it all came together.
I think others may want to weigh in on this as well. Thank you for that question, but I'll start off. We've been spending a lot of time internally and externally having conversations with people about the needs to reform and modernize the parental leave system. I did an informal survey inviting parents to kind of share their feedback on different ideas for what would make it easier for them to navigate this balance. We had a lot of conversations internally because we come from different backgrounds. We've got a couple of us here have longer careers as former political staffers. We've got a couple people up here who have very extensive private sector backgrounds as well. And so this understanding the different impacts regionally and in different sectors, it's been a long process building this, but I'm very happy with what we're able to announce today because I think it is positive, it is impactful, it is good for the economy, it is good for employers. Most importantly, it's good for families. Do others want to weigh in on the process at all?
Yeah, the only thing that I would add, I think it is incredibly important to have lived it when you're developing a solution to a problem, because of course, it's important to look at statistics and such. But it is a little bit different when you have lived it and when you have managed a group that's living it. And my feedback in the work that I've been doing with Garnett has been with real life examples. And to add to Garnett's response too, I did also do a survey within my writing to see really how important is this, and it is incredibly important. And the reality too is that there's other countries in the world that already have introduced this flexibility. It is a trend that's building, and of course we don't want Canadian parents to be to fall behind in this.
And I guess just one final comment. I come from Newfoundland and Labrador, where the economy tends to be a little smaller, and I find a lot of the business people or professional people that I know end up doing multiple things during their career. And I think this is very important so that they can diversify their skills, they can learn, and as things change, they have that ability and that flexibility to be able to extend and diversify in their professional development.
And then specifically on the childcare exception, I heard from a number of parents that were explaining to me that their part-time daycare or childcare arrangement, when she ended up pregnant, she had to give them notice that if she continued to provide that care, they would get clawed back, so they were going to have to remove that. And to me, like, the person, if they're capable of providing that extra care and it's congruent and it works for everybody, why should government be the one saying, absolutely not, you can't support your family?
Thank you. And as a follow-up, I'm just curious how you plan to propose these, given the current makeup in Parliament. Will this come through a private member's bill, or is there some other kind of mechanism that you're looking at to push the government to do this?
Well, we're putting these forward as constructive ideas to the government. Of course, the simplest thing would be for them to listen to these good ideas, recognize their value, and implement them. These specific changes are the kind that are obviously more difficult to make from opposition for lots of reasons. We're here to play a constructive role, to share our experience, and we will hope to see the government listen, respond, and maybe you can ask the minister what she thinks of this.
I'll use my power as moderator to ask a question. You mentioned, it's not just Canada that has a birth rate that's around record lows. This is a trend that's happened across most of the industrialized world, and it's over a long period of time. I mean, within Canada, we've got an aging population that constrain the workforce, that constrain the pension system, seniors' care. So isn't the scale of this challenge kind of much bigger than what you're proposing, and is what Parliament should be taking on more around the financial considerations you're taking on, or do there also have to be kind of changes in what you might call softer social conditions around family planning?
I would say, like, you start, if you want to eat an elephant, you start one bite at a time. And frankly, we're here to propose common sense solutions that in theory should be able to be implemented relatively quickly with no cost to the taxpayer. And so this is the kind of thing that we're proposing, and we think Canadians expect that of their parliament. They expect simple solutions. This is a very complex problem as you laid out, but why not do small, meaningful pieces that would make a difference?
Can I just say, and then I'll go to you, Sandra, afterwards, but we're not going to stop talking about housing affordability, the barriers that young people face when starting a career. All of these are factors, right? Like if you struggle to get your first job, and you don't have access to vocationally relevant training, obviously that's going to impact your ability to start your family within the timeline you want to as well. If you can't afford a house, it's difficult to start a family. So we're talking about a broad range of policy areas that do impact people's ability to have the families they want to have, to address that gap between desire and outcome that Sandra talked about. But I think this is an important piece as well. This is an important part of a wider picture of things we're talking about on making life more affordable for families and making it easier for families to find that balance.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would add to that is, of course, there's a number of variables that contribute to that low birth rate, and many of them have already been addressed. But also, if you think about it, if we have a part of our population who can and want to have children, then we should support them at that.
Follow up? Sorry. I'll go a bit farther afield. I wondered if I could have some general thoughts about kind of the role of technology and social media around family planning. There's a lot of discussion in the online world about the so-called manosphere and kind of lousy dating apps that are creating kind of angry young men, turning off a lot of women. Is there any role that the government should take on in rebalancing some of these social attitudes that have kind of been destructive to creating kind of good relationships?
That's a fascinating question. It is outside the scope of what we're announcing today, but but I will certainly think about it.
I think all of us are out of the dating scene too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think all of us have been out of that scene for a little while. I said I'm marking my 15-year anniversary, so yeah.
Well, and I think this is, again, it's an important question, but the reality is we're looking at dealing with things to help people that are currently looking at starting families or expanding their families and are at that space and have government barriers holding them back. That's an important question. Perhaps you want to ask the Minister of Status of Women what they're doing on that front. But I think this is an important piece to help families expand because right now we hear so much constraint. I know if I go on to the local mom forum in the Fort McMurray Facebook groups, it's something that we hear a lot of families that want more kids, but they just can't afford to. And the barriers in place from EI being as rigid as it is a huge part that's preventing them from being able to expand their family. So if that is something that families are talking about, government should listen and government should act.
Can I ask a follow-up? Yeah. Were there any specific countries that you looked at that have similar policies to this?
Yeah, so the Netherlands model, for instance, actually goes far beyond what we are proposing. In the Netherlands model, parents can extend their parental leave up to 5 years. And then there's Australia too, has more flexible models, and a number of other countries in Europe as well. So this is a step forward, but there are other models that actually provide a lot more flexibility.
And why do you think no other government has done this yet? It seems, on face value, kind of like a smart thing to do. So why do you think that we haven't had this before?
Well, you've got 3 young moms sitting up here on this table. We've got young parliamentarians that are actively having children in office and are interacting with that their friend group, their space. 15 years ago, there were very few parliamentarians having babies while in office, and very few women at that. And so I think that part of it is that we're hearing a different voice that perhaps wasn't heard before. And from our perspective, we're acting on it. I'm not saying that that wasn't heard prior, but we've decided to not just sit back and do nothing, but instead to take action and propose solutions.
I completely agree with that. I would also just add there are some changes in technology and work patterns that make this kind of flexible work more possible, and therefore there's legitimately more of an expectation around it. Nowadays, it's much easier to have that kind of intermittent odd hours work where you're taking things home. I'm sure you see it in the world of journalism as well as we see it in lots of other careers, people being able to take advantage of that flexibility and to work from home more at other hours. So the government has been behind in responding to these demands and these realities that are now more possible.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bonne journée.